The House will come to order. Members will be at their seats. The clerk has opened the roll and you may record your presence. Please rise and give your attention to our guest chaplain, Pastor Doug Hinkle, Garden City, Kansas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Representative Poskin.
Let us pray. Loving Heavenly Father, thank you so much for each representative here. Thank you for deeply loving each one more than we could ever imagine. Father, I acknowledge that you are sovereign and that you have brought every individual member of this body together for your specific purpose. Thank you that you have a particular role for each representative to play as first adjournment approaches. And thank you that you have provided each member with the resources required to accomplish your perfect plan in the Kansas House of Representatives. Your perfect will be accomplished because of or in spite of each one of us. Father, I pray that it will be because of. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Come in. Has every member had an opportunity to record their presence? The clerk will close the roll and record the attendance. The Speaker recognizes Representative Riley on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we recognize the accomplishments of the 2024 Cali County Community College volleyball team. The Lady Tigers will go down as one of the most dominant volleyball teams in the history of NJCAA Division II volleyball. It is a tradition of excellence that the Cali County Community College volleyball team has stood for 49 years of its history. The 2024 team continued that tradition by winning the National Junior College Athletic Association Division II National Championship with a perfect 4-0 record. The National Championship gives the program 4 national championships in their program history and also back-to-back 2023 and 2024 undefeated national championships during the NJCAA winning streak record with 81 straight victories. The Cali College volleyball team dropped only 5 sets in the entire 2024 season. We need to note that the team also captured district and conference titles prior to winning the national championship, and I'm going to list some of those. Bless you. I'm going to work on their names. We'll see how we do here. So the Cali College volleyball team had 5 All-American selections led by Laura Bonomi. Okay. And she also got the AVCA, which is the American Volleyball Coaches Association, 2-year College Player of the Year, NCAA Division II Player of the Year, Conference Most Valuable Player, and NJCAA Tournament Most Valuable Player. Hannah Darvash, got it, was named KGCC Setter of the Year and was also named Freshman of the Year. Jesse Rickard was named the NJCC Libero Defense Player of the Year. Laura Bonomi, did I get that right? Okay, Bonomi, Hannah Darvish, and Sarah Pukash were named NJCAA All-Tournament Team. Sadie Lewis as their team captain. Jossie. Buckley was selected the Kansas Player All-Conference All-District Player of the Year. Valerie Luna was selected the Kansas Player All-Conference. Mika Schultz, also one of the team players from Kansas Player. Lena Milner is their assistant coach. And then their coach, Stephen Grime, this is his 9th year at Cali College, and he was named the American Volleyball Coaches Association Coach of the Year, 2-year College Coach of the Year, NJCAA Division Coach of the Year, AVCA Midwest Regional Coach of the Year, Plains A District Coach of the Year, Kansas Junior Community College Coach of the Year, and NJCAA Coach of the Tournament. Awesome. Also in the gallery up there is the rest of the players. They can stand, and the school administrators. Thank you for coming. Mr. Speaker, I would like my words to be spread across the journal.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Bourgeon on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Greetings, colleagues. I rise before the body today to recognize a momentous occasion for the Hayden High School ladies tennis team this past fall. Joining me on the floor are coaches Christy Sheets and Lynn Bishop, and Hayden ladies tennis players Emily Sheets, Ainsley Zuleta, Avery O'Bray, Izzy Glossbach, Grace Funk, and Sophia Wickman. Last October, Hayden hosted the Class 4A State Championship at Crossover Tennis Center here in Topeka. Through hard work and determination, the Hayden ladies tennis team clinched the team title with 40 points, winning the 4A State Championship. Senior Ainsley Zuleta took home first place in the 4A bracket for Hayden. Zuleta won her 3rd Class 4A state singles title with a 6-0, 6-0 win over Bueller. Additionally, and this is quite impressive, she had a perfect record of 24-0 and didn't lose one single game during the postseason run. Nicely done. Senior Emily Sheets and freshman Sophia Wickman earned a runner-up 4A double finish. Junior Grace Funk placed 9th in singles, and juniors Izzy Glossbach and Avery O'Bray finished 11th in doubles. Overall, it was an incredible performance by the Hayden ladies tennis team. Topeka, as well as Kansas, could not be prouder of you all. We wish all of you much success and luck and eagerly look forward to your next season. Please join me in recognizing this outstanding group of lady athletes. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I ask that my remarks be spread across the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Speaker recognizes Representative Collins on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On May 24th of last year, the Raiders of the Frontenac High School softball team, coached by Cassie Rooms and assisted by Scott Fields and Hope Zafuda, clinched the 2024 Class 3A state title with a hard-fought 3-0 victory over Silver Lake. It was a bittersweet victory for the Raiders in that in less than 2 months prior, they lost a man who had served as assistant coach and avid supporter, and in the case of Coach Rooms, her dad. Francis Bush, or as he was known to many of us as Francie, was a positive influence in the lives of not only Coach Cassie, but the entire team. As the 2024 season progressed, the hashtag P4F, meaning Play for Francie, was a common sight on social media posts, not only in the members of the Frontenac community, but from all over well-wishers in the Southeast Kansas, Southwest Missouri area, and beyond. And in his memory, please join us in congratulating the Frontenac Raiders 2024 Kansas State High School Activity Association Class 3A softball state champions. Mr. Speaker, I request that my remarks be spread across the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Speaker recognizes Representative Osman on a point of personal privilege.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I'm joined up here on the podium with members of Kansas Miss Amazing. Miss Amazing provides opportunities for girls and women with disabilities across Kansas to build self-esteem. The options available to girls with disabilities should reflect their boundless potential. But because of widely held myths about their capabilities, girls with disabilities are often held back from taking risks that could enrich their personal development. They're deprived of opportunities that make friends, and they're granted less access to resources. Miss Amazing was established in 2007 to help combat that. And in 2018, Kansas created its own state organization to work on local issues that girls and women with disabilities face in our state. Kansas Miss Amazing's mission is to provide unique leadership, self-esteem, and self-advocacy opportunities to assist in building those skills. How else can the changes needed be created without the voice of those who have been there and know? And so I'm joined up here on the dais by some, frankly, amazing women and girls. They are Christiana Guerrero, State Director of Kansas Miss Amazing; Elizabeth Jane Varleman, Kansas Miss Amazing Junior Miss; Erin Bowser, Kansas Miss Amazing Senior Miss; and Tiara Hensley, Kansas Miss Amazing Mentor. Thank you all for coming to the Capitol today, and best of luck representing Kansas in the National Conference in July.
Without objection, so ordered. Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, body, I have a resolution that will be up here later that we'll be able to pass on their behalf. But we're going to switch to a point of personal privilege for now so we can introduce them while they're here. And it is my honor to introduce the heroes of Kansas Task Force 1 who are with us today. In anticipation of Hurricane Helene, Kansas Task Force 1 was put on standby several days in advance of landfall. On September 24th, the task force rallied in Olathe and Wichita, Kansas, and headed to Florida, taking shifts and driving through the night. A trip that normally takes 14 hours took a little over 20 hours before arriving in Pensacola, Florida, where they were able to rest. The convoy faced heavy rains from initial bands of the hurricane, 2 tire failures, and heavy traffic. On September 26th, Hurricane Helene made landfall as a powerful Category 4 storm, unleashing widespread destruction and claiming more than 230 lives. On that same day, Task Force 1 was directed to Orlando, Florida, again facing traffic and the storm. Once they arrived, they underwent just-in-time training. On September 27th, Task Force was sent to Dunland, Florida to rescue people in the water. From 4 a.m. to 10 a.m., searching over 600 locations for human life, pet life, and structural assessments. Next, they were assigned to search and rescue operations in the Barrier Islands. Then search and rescue in Treasure Island, Florida, which is another barrier island. On September 30th, their work in Florida was complete, and they were demobilized by Florida. On October 1st, while on their way home at 5 a.m., Task Force 1 was reassigned and redeployed to North Carolina, where they set up Tent Field Hospital as their first task. They searched very hilly and rugged terrain in the areas of Burnsville, North Carolina. On October 3rd, they worked with the National Guard unit doing search and rescue in Yancey County, North Carolina. In some cases, Task Force 1 was the first to arrive in these areas and make human contact with residents. They used Starlink to communicate because there was very little communication infrastructure left. On October 10th, Task Force 1 assigned to an extensive search up the mountain to the river. They identified and marked possible targets for human remains detection canines to search for recovery of human remains. They conducted search and rescue for the remaining time in North Carolina, and finally, on October 7th and 8th, Task Force 1 departed from North Carolina, and several of them joined other Kansas heroes to go back to Florida for Hurricane Milton. The heroes of Task Force 1 are with us today. I'm going to announce all their names. Some of them are going to be in the gallery, and when I say your name, you can stand up and wave. Some of you are going to be behind me. This is in alphabetical order. Toby Aldridge, Sean Alexander, Caleb Berger, Tyler Brenneman, Josh Cheney, Devin Connolly, Paul Kraft, Cameron Dietsch, Dietsch, just in case. Crystal Escobar, Brian Force, Brian Griffin, Riley Hawbaker, Sean Hayes. Sean is spelled wrong. Randy Hill, Frank Hogan, Kendall Johnson, Lori Kearns, Dale Lowry, Matt Ludwig, Adam McIntosh, Jackie Miller, Cole Minton, Adam Powers, Jay Reynolds, Tyler Ross, Cody Songs, Daryl Strain, Evan Swanson, Drew Taylor, Tony Tracy, Jeff Weltmer, Luke Wiebe, W-I-E-B-E, Chad Winton, Christopher Worths, Nicholas Woods, Landon Woodward. And our State Fire Marshal, Mark Ingholm, is here as well. Please welcome these Kansas heroes to the State House. Mr. Speaker, I ask that my words be spread across the journal and body. I will see you later to pass the resolution. Thank you.
Without objection, so ordered. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
HCR 5013 by Representative Sutton, Neighbor, and others, a concurrent resolution urging Congress to give state insurance regulators authority over Medicare Advantage plans.
Messages from the Senate. The clerk will read.
The Senate non-concurs in House amendments to SB 14, requests a conference, and has appointed Senators Billinger, Clays, and Petty as conferees on the part of the Senate. The Senate non-concurs in House amendments to SB 105, requests a conference, and has appointed Senators Masterson, Blue, and Faust-Godot as conferees on part of the Senate.
Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 14 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Wassinger, Williams, and Ballard. That'd be Christy Williams.
Good.
It's Waymaster. That's Wassinger. I was wrong. It's Representatives Waymaster, Christy Williams, and Ballard. Even though it's not correct up here.
Is that correct? Good? Okay.
Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Croft for a motion to accede.
The Senate did not concur on House amendments to Senate Bill 105 and requested a conference. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Proctor, Wagner, and Haskins. Introduction of original motions and House resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Resolution 6013 by Representatives Hawkins and Croft, a resolution commemorating the 50th anniversary of the State Government Affairs Council. Whereas the State Government Affairs Council, SGAC, was established 50 years ago with the mission to advance and support the state government affairs profession by fostering community and relationship building with peers and elected officials, building knowledge and promoting diverse perspectives in a nonpartisan environment. And whereas SGAC's members, consisting of government affairs professionals, have consistently worked to enhance understanding and communication between the public and private sectors, ensure the fair representation of diverse interests, and advocate for the advancement of policies that promote unparalleled educational opportunities, provide a forum for members and policymakers to convene and collaborate, mentor the next generation of state government affairs professionals, and promote all aspects of diversity. And whereas through its collaboration with the legislative bodies, administrative agencies, and community stakeholders, SGAC has helped build a more responsive, transparent, and accountable government at the state level. And whereas the 50th anniversary of SGAC represents a milestone of achievement and service in its ongoing commitment to excellence in government affairs. And whereas SGAC has fostered a forward-thinking platform for addressing emerging challenges in state governance. And whereas SGAC has created a legacy of fostering leadership, training, and advocacy that has shaped the professional development of thousands of individuals in the field of government relations. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the State of Kansas that we commemorate the State Government Affairs Council for its 50 years of dedicated service and significant contributions to enhancing the relationship between state and local governments, businesses, and communities. And be it further resolved that we encourage continued support for SGAC's mission and commend its members for their tireless work to advocate for sound policy decisions, transparency, and good governance. And be it further resolved that we extend congratulations to the SGAC and its members for reaching this remarkable milestone, acknowledge their enduring influence on the state's government affairs landscape, and recognize their continued commitment to advancing public policy across the state. And be it further resolved that the Chief Clerk of the House of Representatives shall send an enrolled copy of the resolution to the State Government Affairs Council.
On HR 6013, the Speaker recognizes Representative Croft for a motion to adopt the resolution.
Mr. Speaker, I move adoption of HR 6013.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
I move my remarks spread across, I withdraw.
Without objection, so ordered. Introduction of original motions and House resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Resolution 6014 by House Resolution number 6014 by Representatives Amix and Alcala and others. A resolution recognizing March 13, 2025 as Mental Health Advocacy Day at the Capitol.
On HR 6014, the Speaker recognizes Representative Amix for a motion to adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate all of you giving me the time today to come forward and talk just for a second about Mental Health Advocacy Day, which will be tomorrow at the Capitol. So here's the deal. All of us work very hard at the health of Kansans, and this is just one more area that we put effort forward and really need to make sure that we do. So as we see people that are the advocates that are visiting the Capitol tomorrow, make sure you say thanks for all the work that they do, because this has got to be one hard job. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I want to make sure that everybody understands that I appreciate all the support of everyone who signed the resolution as a sponsor. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would move the adoption of HR 6014.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. House Bill 2390 appears on the consent calendar for the first day. Is there any objection? Seeing none, it will remain on the consent calendar for the second day. Senate Bill 2 appears on the consent calendar for the third day. Is there an objection? Seeing none, it will be advanced to final action. Final action on bills and concurrent resolutions, the clerk will read.
SB 2 by Senators Blue, Clifford, and Act concerning elections, relating to question submitted elections on the issuance of bonds by a school district, validating the election results for the bond issuance questions submitted by the Board of Education of USD 200, Greeley County, relating to election publication requirements, providing for publication on the website of the county election office if such office has a website.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 2. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Having voted in 121, having voted in favor of Senate Bill 2, or having voted in favor and one against the passage of Senate Bill 2, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. The clerk will read.
SB 2217 by Committee on Health and Human Services, an act concerning the Attorney General, relating to the Office of the Inspector General and the powers, duties, and responsibilities thereof, expanding the power of the Inspector General to investigate and audit all state cash, food, and health assistance programs.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2217. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am voting no on HB 2217. I am strongly opposed to granting the Inspector General any broadened powers, increased staff, or additional funds. This bill would unnecessarily grow government during a time of fiscal austerity in Kansas. This bill is unnecessary, wasteful, and duplicative. This bill is simply a power grab by the Inspector General and the Attorney General. I will not be complicit in any fiscally irresponsible budgetary decisions while everyday Kansans are struggling to pay their bills. Our priority should be focusing on pragmatic ways to give Kansans meaningful tax relief. I'm joined by Representative Sawyer Clayton, Hoskin, Melton, Neighbor, Brownlee Page, Ballard, Carr, Oropeza, Haskins, Woodard, Ruiz, Amix, Miller, Stogstill, Weigel, Martinez, Sawyer, Singensiepen, Luis Ruiz, John Carmichael, Cindy Cardlin, Brooklyn Mosley, Suzanne Weichel, Lindsey Vaughn, Valdinia Nguyen, and Linda Featherston.
Are there any further explanation of votes? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 85 voting in favor and 37 against the passage of House Bill 2217, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. The clerk will read.
SB 82 by Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act concerning rural emergency hospitals, relating to nursing facility physical environment regulatory requirements, requiring the Secretary for Aging and Disability Services to grant waivers to certain rural emergency hospitals to provide skilled nursing facility care.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 82. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 122 voting in favor and 0 against the passage of Senate Bill 82. The same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. The clerk will read.
SB 88 by Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act concerning the state long-term care ombudsman, requiring the state long-term care ombudsman and any regional ombudsman to receive training in memory care.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 8. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? The speaker recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I vote no on SB 88. I'm not here to encourage the rest of you to vote no, but as far as I'm concerned, if the two ombudsmen involved don't already know about memory care, they shouldn't be ombudsmen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any further explanation of votes? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Susan Ruiz votes aye. Representative Barth votes aye. Any further changes of, pardon me? Representative Carr votes aye. Any further change of votes? Seeing none, 120. Seeing none, 121 voting in favor and 1 against the passage of Senate Bill 88. Same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Clerk will read.
House substitute for SB 126 by Committee on Health and Human Services, an act concerning health and health care relating to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, updating income eligibility requirements for the Children's Health Insurance Program, establishing an advanced universal newborn screening program, providing for the reimbursement of certain treatment services, authorizing the Secretary of Health and Environment to specify conditions included in newborn screenings, extending the transfer of monies to the Kansas Newborn Screening Fund, increasing the state financial assistance to local health departments under certain circumstances, increasing the annual assessment on service rate on inpatient and outpatient revenue, and expanding exemptions for such assessment.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 126. Clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 119 voting in favor and 3 against the passage of Senate Bill 126. Same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. The clerk will read.
SB 175 by Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act concerning health and health care, relating to healthcare professions, updating the definition of athletic trainer, providing for an exception for those licensed in another state, District of Columbia, territory, or foreign country to practice in Kansas.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 175. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Bergquist votes aye. Representative Mosier votes aye. Are there any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 121 voting in favor and 1 against the passage of Senate Bill 175. The same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Clerk will read.
SB 193 by Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act concerning the State Board of Pharmacy relating to emergency opioid antagonist, exempting law enforcement agencies who do not provide emergency opioid antagonists pursuant to the statewide protocol from the requirement to procure a physician medical director.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 193. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 122 voting in favor and 0 against the passage of Senate Bill 193, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to resolve into the committee of the whole.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself in the committee of the whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of general orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion carries. The Speaker appoints Representative Proctor to chair the committee of the whole.
Morning, body. The first order of business is Senate Bill 18. For the purposes of carrying Senate Bill 18, Chair recognizes Representative Estes. Representative Essex.
Good morning for a few more minutes, body. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor of adopting the committee report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The committee report is adopted. You may continue.
SB 18 passed the Senate 39-1, and it would authorize issuance of the Hunter Nation distinctive license plate. The bill would establish the procedures for a vehicle owner or leasee to obtain the license plate and would allow Hunter Nation Incorporated to set the royalty for use of its logo for each license plate at an amount between $25 and $100 to be paid at initial issuance and renewal. Monthly royalty payments would be directed to Hunter Nation Foundation Incorporated. The bill would authorize the Director of Vehicles and KDOR to transfer a Hunter Nation license plate from a leased vehicle to a purchased vehicle. We did have proponents, Senator Karen Tyson, stating that Hunter Nation is a national group that promotes safe hunting, conservation, and educates hunters on the issues. Written testimony was provided by Keith Mark, President of Hunter Nation, and Attorney General Chris Kobach. There was a committee amendment, and we changed the royalty payments from the 501c4 for Hunter Nation to the 501c3 foundation. The enactment of SB 18 would increase the expenditures by $2,640 in 2026 for administrative costs related to designing and manufacturing the new license plate. And the license plate would be subject to the $40 special plate application fee and $40 personalized plate application fee if they chose to personalize the plate. I stand for questions.
Does anyone wish to speak on the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment.
The amendment appears short. The clerk will read.
As amended by House Committee on page 2 in line 20 by striking all after thereto, by striking all in line 21, in line 22 by striking all before the period.
Would you like to explain your amendment?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Body, in committee, this bill was amended to restrict how the funds could be used. Hunter Nation brought us this bill in good faith and wanted to have the proceeds go to the organization for them to use as they will. an amendment was brought in committee to restrict the use of these funds so that they could not be used for the 501c4 portion of Hunter Nation that might be involved in express advocacy for or against constitutional amendments or other issues. While I appreciate the bringer of that amendment and their intent, I support what Hunter Nation stands for, and I'm all for them using these proceeds in order to advocate on behalf of a right that's protected in both our U.S. Constitution and in the Kansas Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms. So we've not in the past done this where we restrict how funds can be used. The argument was made that we don't want to use taxpayer funds for the purpose of express advocacy. These aren't taxpayer funds. These are people choosing to spend additional money to get the Hunter Nation tag with the understanding that that money will go directly to that organization for its use and however it wants to use those funds. I think it's a dangerous precedent to restrict those funds. We didn't do it when we did the Kansas Rifle Association tag. I don't know why we would do that to Hunter Nation. And so, while again, I respect the views of the bringer of the amendment and the committee, this amendment would change it back to how it was when it arrived at our committee. And Mr. Chair, I'll stand for questions on my amendment.
To speak on the amendment, the chair recognizes Representative Hoy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm against this amendment because though it is correct that the money that the state is fundraising for license plates is not taxpayer dollars, it does take taxpayer dollars to and taxpayer funded positions to actually implement the license plates. In Kansas, we don't have a lot of criteria for these license plates, so they come before us as individual bills, which revisors have to write and spend time on. That's taxpayer-funded time. Then the Department of Revenue has to work to get the designs in place and get them going. That is definitely taxpayer-funded positions. And then the state treasurer has to move the funds over to whatever account that the legislature has determined those funds should go to. And so each individual bill is our opportunity to say we think this is appropriate or inappropriate use of the way that we use these license plates to fundraise. Historically, there have been a 501c3 or 501c4 designations, or at least they would allow to go to that. We have a number of license plates in the state that are designated to the organization or the organization's designee. So there are some, for me, my opinion, opportunities for a lack of transparency the way that we do look at these license plates. Some other states actually have global criteria in order to fundraise through license plates, and many of them do limit that to be exclusively C3 funding that would be transparent. Some states even require that you have to submit an annual report and an audit for 3 years if you receive the state license plates for your fundraiser. So I don't think it's inappropriate to look at each license plate individually and say, is this appropriate? As we all know, 501c4s are allowed to do express advocacy, including giving money directly to campaigns of elected officials. I do not think that state resources should be used to fundraise for our own elections. I think that's really inappropriate. So again, I think that we should reject this amendment, and we have the right to review these on a case-by-case basis. I don't think it's saying there's no really precedent that we're establishing, because we don't have a state statute on how we audit and approve fundraising through our license plates. So with that, I would ask you to vote no on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, I would ask that we keep everything to a whisper so it doesn't get too loud. Chair recognizes Representative Esau.
Sorry, I was trying to make sure I wasn't cutting in front of someone. I meant to push my amendment button. If you go back and look, you'll find out that I used to vote against all the license plate bills because I didn't think we should be using our license plates for bake sales for all these various organizations. I've given up because there's so many. And I just wanted to say that is the reason that now I vote for them, because, you know, sometimes you just can't win. And in addition to that, there is the fact that I agree with the previous speaker that I don't think we've restricted how any of these organizations have used their funds, where it went. And I have no problem with voting for this one, for them to use their funds as they want to as well. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Carmichael on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to the amendment to SB 18, and tangentially, I also oppose SB 18, whether it's amended or not. I think you all have heard me speak more than once about the fact that I think it's a very bad policy to use license plates to espouse political causes, religious causes, other causes, that the purpose for license plates is to identify vehicles. And if you want to support life, or if you want to support choice, or whatever it is you want to do, you can get a bumper sticker, a medallion, all kinds of things you can put on your car, but you don't need it on your license tag. This amendment, though, points out an increasing and very concerning trend with respect to these license plates. They are being used as fundraising devices for the organizations that sponsor the plate. Now, I had always thought that that would be 501c3 organizations, charitable organizations, that if I buy a Shriner's license plate, that the money would go to help the kids at children's hospitals. But now these license plates, and this is a particularly egregious example, are being used by politically involved organizations. And there's no doubt but what Hunter Nation's 501c4 is a politically involved, quote-unquote, educational dues organization with a private list of contributors. These plates are being used to raise money to advocate and campaign for and against political causes. We are literally using the county treasurer's office as a place where you can make contributions to politically related campaigns by buying a license tag. Now, maybe you like Hunter Nation and what they're doing. Maybe you like gun rights and you want to support the State Rifle Association. Send them a check. Join the organization. Attend their rallies and meetings. But don't use the county treasurer's office as a place to raise money for political organizations. And so I stand firmly opposed to this amendment as well as Senate Bill 18. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
God, it got quiet all of a sudden. You know, some of you know that I'm also working on the tax committee, trying to develop policies and procedures for the tax committee on exemptions that we give. And what I've learned and what I think should be a policy is the legislature, both for licenses and for exemptions, treats 501c3s and 501c4s differently. I believe that blanket authority should be given to anybody that wants to go through the process and develop a license tag for their charitable organization, 501c3s, and go through the hoops. They should be granted it. The same should be also done for tax exemptions that we're going to be dealing with sometime soon. Give you a hint. But when you go to 501c4s, you have gone to a whole different ballgame. I know of many organizations that are 501c4s that if they came and asked for a license tag or an exemption, many of you would cringe. So would I, because I don't want to start having to debate all of the policies in everything we do up here. I want to have it fairly plain, fairly innocuous, and let the people have an opportunity to voice their support for hunters, for the Rifle Association, or for those organizations that tend to be more liberal. But stay out of the 501c4s because they have gone to a political realm that I don't think the state should be arguing about on a regular basis. So I believe that we should be voting against this so that we keep us out of that kind of discussion and endorse them for getting a 501c3 contribution.
Does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Seeing none, Representative Proctor, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the deepest possible respect to all the folks that came up here and spoke in opposition to this amendment, the underlying bill is not breaking new ground. There are many, many advocacy organizations that have license plates that get money in exact the same way that we're proposing that Hunter Nation would get money. Kansas Rifle Association, Kansas for Life. So I would just ask that we don't single Hunter Nation out for special scrutiny when we've done this many, many times as a legislature. They went through the process. They went through their legislators, petitioned their government, got a bill passed through the Senate, got sent over to the House to allow them to fundraise through a unique license plate to further their goals of express advocacy in favor of our right to keep and bear arms. I would ask that you just support the process and support this amendment. And with that, Mr. Chair, I close.
You've heard the motion by Representative Proctor to amend. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Division's been called. Clerk will open the roll. Has everyone had the opportunity to vote? Seeing 15 hands, this is a roll call vote. Hold on a second. So we're going to have to change the chairs. Allow. I'm voting for Proctor. Here, yeah.
Just when I push my button.
Does anyone wish to change their vote? Representative Bourgeon votes no. Representative Penn votes aye. Anyone else? Seeing none, the yeas being 75, the nays 43, the amendment passes. We are back on the bill. All right, to further speak on the bill, the chair recognizes Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I'll have to be voting no on this. Before the license plate with the fact that the money was going to a 501c3 nonprofit. That is something you can get behind, but I'm very confused why we add an amendment in the carrier of the amendment itself and it gets passed that a 501c4, which the money goes specifically to political action groups and committees, and we're trying to get PAC money out of our elections. Why did we agree to this? So voting no, it's just more money for PACs, and we should have kept it the way it was.
Further discussion, the chair recognizes Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did support this bill in committee because it had the amendment on it to designate to Hunter Nation Foundation, but I will be changing my vote now to not be supportive of this bill. The Hunter Nation Foundation, their mission is to, it's called Hunt the Vote, to get hunters out to vote, which I think we can all agree is contributes to the public good. Voter turnout and specifically getting people to the polls is a good thing. But now that this money is going to money that can be used as dark money throughout campaigning processes, I cannot support it. I also think it goes beyond my, I guess, sniff test that this bill, the proponents of this it is a statewide elected official and a member of a state commission. And now what they're going to be able to fundraise and have these dollars used for express advocacy throughout campaigns. So unfortunately, I am changing my position on this bill and will be voting no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
For further discussion, the chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
You know, if you support the committee process, you make a decision to follow the process and to support when the majority makes a decision. Therefore, I'm going to vote for the bill, but I'm going to work real hard from now on to change the policy. We shouldn't be advocating for 501c4s. We should do it for 501c3s. That's a good, clear policy that we send as a message. So I'll reluctantly support the bill.
Does any other member desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Osman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Generally, I vote yes on license plate bills generally, but my philosophy is what a lot of representatives have come up to the well to say. This is a waste of time. I do not understand why this is codified in law and that we have to have license plate bills here. Why can't we have the Kansas Department of Revenue set up its own individual committee with specific policies and procedures as to what is appropriate, what is not, who can come before them, who cannot, and how they actually approve license plates and get it out of individual bills and individual laws that we have to pass to get a license plate. Let's just get back to simpler times where we can actually focus on laws that matter to the people of Kansas. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Essex, you may close.
Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports SB 18 favorably for passage as amended.
You've heard the motion by Representative Essex to report Senate Bill 18 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is Senate Bill 98. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 98, the chair recognizes Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were committee reports. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. The committee report is adopted. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. US Highway 66 is famous for being a historic highway that connected Chicago to Los Angeles and for its role in the American culture. Route 66, spanning a distance of 2,446 total miles, of which only 13.2 of them being in Kansas, makes our section the shortest of any state along the highway.
Please keep the sidebars to a minimum so we can hear the person at the well. Thank you. Please continue, Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The 100th anniversary of Route 66 is coming in 2026. This bill would authorize issuance of the Route 66 Association of Kansas distinctive license plate on or after January 1st, 2026 for use on a passenger vehicle or truck registered for a gross weight of 20,000 pounds or less. The bill would establish the procedures for a vehicle owner or leasee to obtain the plate and the responsibilities of the Route 66 Association of Kansas with regard to this license plate. The bill would allow Route 66 Association of Kansas Incorporated to set the royalty for use of its logo in each license plate at an amount between $25 and $100 to be paid at initial issuance and on renewal. The bill would authorize the Director of Vehicles, Kansas Department of Revenue, to transfer a Route 66 Association of Kansas license plate from a leased vehicle to a purchased vehicle. Senate Bill 98 passed the Senate 39-1, and there were 2 proponents and no opponents or neutrals. And there was one committee amendment making the bill take effect upon publication in the Kansas Register. And I said maybe it should be take effect on June 6th, but that didn't seem too popular. And on a fiscal note, enactment of Senate Bill 98 would increase the expenditures by $2,890 in fiscal year 2026 for administrative costs related to designing and manufacturing the new plate. And the department estimates that the bill would decrease revenues for the State Highway Fund by $4,000 in fiscal year 2026. And with that, I stand for questions.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
I support the bill.
Does any other member desire to speak to the bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might add that if any of you ever get the opportunity to go down and see our 13.2 miles in Kansas of Route 66, it's really a fun thing. There's an old truck down there which they say was the inspiration for Mater in the movie Cars. And anyway, so like I said, it really is a fun day trip if any of you would like to visit Southeast Kansas. And Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 98 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Collins to report Senate Bill 98 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. Next order of business is Senate Bill 121. For the purposes of carrying Senate Bill 121, Chair recognizes Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. The committee report is adopted. Please continue.
Is it because it's insurance that you guys are so lackluster? What, my heavens. Is that the reason? Okay, good. Committee SB 121 is a very similar in nature to HB 2128 that passed the House on February 20th, 121-0. The only difference made by the Senate was to reiterate legislative intent with the, as far as the self-funded plans being exempted from the definition of the health benefit plans, which we spelled out pretty clearly in 40-202. This was a reiteration of that intent, and so I will stand for questions.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The carrier of the bill did an excellent job of describing the contents of Senate Bill 121. The one thing that was changed in our committee when this came over was the date of publication from the statute books to the register. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask everyone to support Senate Bill 121.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Sutton, you may close.
Well, let's keep it short then. I close. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You've heard the motion by Representative Sutton to report Senate Bill 121 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2329. For the purpose of carrying House Bill 2329, the chair recognizes Representative Lewis.
Good morning, House. There were amendments to HB 2329. I ask that the committee report be adopted.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. You may continue.
Thank you, Chair. HB 2329 is the most significant and consequential bill to come out of the House Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committee this session. The bill amends the Juvenile Justice Code, which itself was substantially rewritten about 9 years ago with a bill from the Senate, Senate Bill 367. I believe that a number of representatives who have been in this chamber for the last several years are fairly familiar with SB 367. My understanding, it essentially rewrote the Juvenile Justice Code back 9 years ago, and it received bipartisan support. The purpose of Senate Bill 367, as I understand it, was primarily to move out of our correctional facility many of the juveniles that were being placed there. The idea, and everybody seemed to agree, we were just incarcerating too many juveniles. And they thought that especially what I'll call the mid-level offenders would be better served, as would society, if they were taken out of the correctional facility and moved back into their communities where they would be given community services, mental health treatments, and so forth. Largely, that bill, 367, was successful and did a lot to improve our juvenile justice system. There were, however, and are, however, some problems with it, which have become apparent since its passage. Primarily, the problem was that you took these mid-level offenders, repeat offenders, think perhaps car thieves, and you took them out of the correctional facility, but you really didn't provide an appropriate alternative to that. And as I said, they were being sent back into their communities. They were being sent back into perhaps dysfunctional families. They were being sent back into the environment that they were in when they offended. And also, and this is very significant, many of them were being sent back or sent into foster care circumstances. What's become clear over the years is oftentimes these mid-level offenders were not well served by the situation. They weren't being held accountable sufficiently. Judges didn't have the discretion and authority needed to hold them accountable. And oftentimes, as I said, they were being sent into foster care circumstances. The foster care system isn't designed, quite frankly, to handle juvenile offenders. It's designed to handle the children in need of care, or known as SINC children. And so consequently, what was happening is the foster care parents felt threatened. They felt like they weren't sufficiently trained. They didn't have the tools to handle the juvenile offenders. And in some instances, the juvenile offenders were also, I'll say, corrupting or perpetrating the SINC kids. So mixing the juvenile offenders with the foster care SINC kids just hasn't worked. In committee, we heard a lot of testimony about this. The other problems we were addressing with this bill had to do with, as I said, restricting the ability of judges in some instances to hold these kids accountable by sending them, for instance, in detention. Detention being what is a jail. It would be pre-adjudication, or in some instances, they felt they still needed the ability to send them into correctional facilities. And then finally, another problem we addressed in the bill is guns. We heard from many conferees saying that we need more authority to handle guns. So what did we do? To address these concerns, we did several things. The bill provides for group homes. Group homes, or you can think of them as more structured homes. They aren't incarceration, but they do restrict somewhat the ability of the juvenile offenders to move about. And so it's somewhere between a foster care, I guess, and a home, and perhaps an incarceration circumstance. I say we brought them back. They actually are still provided for in the Juvenile Justice Code. It will say, for instance, that the juveniles can be either incarcerated or sent to non-foster care homes or group homes. But the problem is that after 367, we did away with all the group homes. So as a practical matter, there was no ability for either the correctional people who are placing the kids or the courts to send them into group homes. So we brought back group homes, and the way we did this is we require the Department of Correction now to contract for group homes with a total of no less than 35, but no more than 45 beds. And we also provided that any one group home could not have more than 15 beds. We also, we thought that the limiting to 15 beds would be better therapeutically for the kids, but also it would, we would not have one group home with 45 beds located in Johnson County or Sedgwick County. We would be able to regionally distribute the group homes. Then the question becomes, well, where does the money come from? I believe when we started this session, there was about $45 million sitting in it's called an evidence-based fund, which was established by 367. And although those funds were designed to help with the therapeutic services that were going to be provided to the juveniles who were being taken out of an incarcerated circumstance. But quite frankly, they hadn't been used, and we had a $45 billion surplus. I then heard that the budgeting people were looking at that, and they wanted to take 10 million of that and have it lapse. So I went to them and I said, well, rather than having it lapse, why don't we take that $10 million and apply it to the group homes that we're trying to establish? And they agreed on that. We'll still have to watch the budgeting process, but I'm hopeful that we will have the $10 million from monies that had already been allocated a number of years ago for the evidence-based fund. So that's the group home situation. As to guns, we did several things. We increased the possible sentence if a firearm by a juvenile was used or possessed in the commission of a crime. Old law, current law says that the sentencing range is 6 to 12 months, and we increased that to 18 to 24. And also, we require now that if a juvenile is arrested having used or possessed a gun in a commission of crime, that they be placed into a detention circumstance, that is a jail, pending adjudication of their case. We also took care of what we call chronic offenders, repeat offenders. We the current law says that they can't be sent to a correctional facility if they have an assessment of a high-risk assessment on an assessment test. We lowered that somewhat. If they're either mid or high risk individuals, they can be sent to a correctional facility. Finally, we increased, so current law says that, once again, pre-adjudication detention, you can't hold a juvenile more than 45 days, and we increased that to a cumulative 90 days. As far as proponents go, we had prosecutors, we had people on the streets, we had Matt Stevens from the St. Mary's Ministries, which provides for the foster care circumstances. He testified about the problems in the foster care system. We held 2 days of hearings in the committee on the bill because this bill is actually two bills that were combined. We had the group home bill and the, I'll call it the increased detention bill, and we combined them. We actually had 2 days of hearing in ours, and in the Child Welfare Committee also had hearings on Senate Bill 367 and heard somewhat similar stories to what we heard. Mark Bennett, the DA from Sedgwick County, supported the bill. We had opponents from the Kansas Appleseed and also from the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee. These opponents came forward before we made some significant amendments to the bill. I don't know how they are considering it now. I would say that as to the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee, it's a bit ironic because I'm on that committee and they opposed the bill. I also know that Stephen Owens was on the committee. He supports the bill, so there's not uniform agreement on that. With that, I will stand for questions. Oh, I'm sorry. I do have one technical amendment.
The amendment appears short. The clerk will read.
On page 7 in line 6 by striking 45 and inserting 90. In line 11 by striking 45 and inserting 90.
Representative, do you wish to explain your amendment?
Yes, so yesterday, the revisers who are very good at their jobs and had looked at this amendment for one final time brought to my attention that this amendment and is basically conforming to the bill that we passed, but there was one place where you needed to increase the amount. This is the cumulative period you can hold a juvenile in detention, and it had been increased from 45 to 90 in one place, but it needed to be a conforming amendment or conforming change needed to be made to another provision. So that's the amendment, and I'll stand for questions if there are any.
Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
I close on my amendment to 2329.
You've heard the motion by Representative Lewis to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. We're back on the bill. Representative, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will now stand for questions on the bill as amended.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of HB 2329 as amended. I was here when Senate Bill, brought my notes today. Senate Bill 367 was passed. It has the name Senate on it, but I really think it was a House bill, in my opinion, and it was a dramatic change in the way we dealt with juveniles in the juvenile justice system. In short, we went away from the lock 'em up model to the try to help them model. And it's saved money. I think it's saved lives. It's improved kids' lives. But as the carrier of the bill says, there were still some places where we needed improvement. But my real reason to be here is to say the original bill was the work in part of our departed friend Russ Jennings, our then vice chair, from McPherson, who, this is Hump Day. Hump Day was Les Mason's thing, by the way. That's where many of us got our little camel pins. But it was a good bipartisan effort. And what I want to tell you today is that I watched our ranking member and our chair work together once again in a good bipartisan effort. When I first saw the chair's bill, 2329, I feared he was going to take us back to the days of lock 'em up, throw away the key. But by the time this bill was finished and by the time we'd worked it in committee, it became something that I think addresses some specific problems that needed addressing. I also want you to understand that not all of the children's juvenile justice organizations are in favor of this bill. And I think the carrier pointed that out to us. And to those folks, I say I'm sorry that we couldn't accommodate everybody. And maybe this isn't the right solution, but in this circumstance, I believe progress is better than perfect progress. And so I know a number of other members of my caucus are going to be addressing this on the merits, and so I'll go sit down and listen. But I just wanted to share with everyone, first, some of the history of how we got here, and second, the fact that there is still room for bipartisan work and compromise in the Kansas legislature. And I commend both my chair and my ranking member for their work on HB 2329. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? Chair recognizes Representative Mosley.
Thank you. Would the carrier of the bill please stand for a few questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any evidence that longer incarcerations have better outcomes for youth?
I think it all will depend on the actual juvenile. I don't think you can generalize, and it also, and so it depends on the severity of the circumstance of the offense and the background of the juvenile, whether incarceration is better or not for them.
And what is the age demographic for the juvenile justice system?
It's 10 to 18.
And this bill allows for someone to have that charge to be incarcerated for up to 24 months, correct? Even at that age of 10 years old?
I believe that's right in circumstance. And I'll say that, I mean, even with the 367 change, and without any amendment today, that's true. And I mean, if a juvenile is a rapist or if a juvenile is a murderer, we put them into correctional facility. And that's true before 367, and it's true after 367, and it will be true after if we pass this bill today.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So originally I had 7 amendments to this bill. But I was also a former mathlete before Mean Girls said it was social suicide, and I can count, and I know that these amendments will be shot down, so I will keep my perfect record so far for bringing amendments. My biggest, thank you. My biggest hang up on this bill is that the sense that I get is that we have to just do something. And I recognize that there are kids out there who are out of control. And maybe, thank you. And maybe I just don't know a lot of super bad kids, but This bill concerns me in a way that just doing something that isn't really truly based in evidence and really truly based in, and also is contrary to actual evidence, is very problematic because we shouldn't have an attitude of we should just do something when it comes to our children. Thank you very much. My biggest concern is the rhetoric that during the hearing was just shy of calling these children super predators. And we know what that term did to children after 1994 and how they were incarcerated and how once you get into the incarceration system, it's really hard to get out of there as a juvenile justice. And it was just really hard to get out there once you're in like the system and the school to prison pipeline. We are all aware of what that does. One of the biggest problem with this bill and just the conversation around the children who need additional help is that these children are examples of their environment. We are sitting here and we're saying like, let's jail these kids. We have to hold them accountable, but when are we gonna hold ourselves accountable? These kids are living in households where their parents can't make ends meet, and that takes a toll on you. These kids live in communities where they don't have access to their parents and they don't have access to medical care. And so my biggest problem with this bill and why I probably will not be able to support it, even though I will say that the chairman of our committee was very gracious and he really did work with us, and I do appreciate the ranking member and him getting together and working, is that having an attitude that we just need to do something is just, we're once again sponsoring another group of resilient children in Kansas. And I hope that one day that we can get past that. I will not be dropping my amendments because I know that is a waste of time. I can count. And this is just, it's very unfortunate that this is where we are.
Is there any further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Questions for the carrier of the bill? At least one question.
Yes, sir.
So just to get to the question right away, you were many times mentioning group homes. And from a background of IDD disabled people, there is a terminology that we use for a group home. And I even noticed that in the bill, group home was crossed out and made, youth residential facilities, right?
Yes, right.
And so the definition for youth facilities is not in the bill that I saw. I know you quoted several numbers. Where were that information?
When yes, the term in the bill is youth residential facilities.
Right.
And I've referred to those as group homes.
And it's crossed out.
It may not be the precise. It's not the IDD homes you're talking about.
Right.
But in terms of, you ask about where
is it defined?
Oh,
I didn't see that go into another statute,
right,
or a KDHE definition or anything.
Right. Quite frankly, I don't know whether it is perhaps defined in other portions of the statute or not.
Okay. Thank you.
We'd have to ask the revisers. I don't know. But
right.
That certainly
so
is what we're talking about.
All I'm getting at is, for this kind of a situation, we should probably use that youth youth residential facility rather than that used group home, because it could be confused with another thing. Because defined as such, from my background, a group home could be 4 clients in a home.
Right.
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 And so what you're looking at is up to 15. Is that correct?
That's right.
Up to 15 in a home. And I will say that at a earlier part of my life, I actually worked temporarily, a part-time thing for one of those things, and then the funding quit for them. And so, I see the use of you doing that. But there's just a whole lot of difference in level behind what I consider a group home and what is being used as the word of youth residential facility. So not just somewhere we need to probably make some kind of a definition of what that really looks like. And then I will say and this is being picky, page 19, you use that same words over and over again, but on page 19, it was only used, let me see if I can find that quick. But all the way through, you use youth residential facilities, and then on page 19, you changed and used another terminology.
Non-foster care beds, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, you use just the secretary providing residential services for juvenile offenders.
Right,
So,
yes.
if it comes to a conference committee, maybe you can look at kind of cleaning that part up. So
I appreciate that. And to your first point about group homes versus youth residential facilities, as you point out, we did see that the group homes was used in the current law, and we made that
Yes.
change. So
You crossed it out,
right.
exactly.
And I appreciate your pointing out the other issue, and that could be something we could take up in conference. I appreciate that.
And again, as a second point that I had a problem with, and this is not necessarily a question for you, but I had a problem when originally we were talking about this bill and they talked about having a gun in your possession of the youth. And so when I just, for clarification for everybody, that was not just in your possession and.
Please keep the chatter to a minimum so that the speakers can be heard. Please continue.
But it was not just in possession of a gun, because I could throw a gun at you, stick it in your pocket, and you would be in trouble even though you were just standing there. But it's added or used in the role of committing the crime. So clarifying that clarified for me both way, that made a difference for me as far as making a positive for this bill.
I think the terminology is if the youth uses or possesses a gun during the commission of the crime. So there has to be a connection between the possession and the crime.
Yeah, correct. And not just simply on yourself.
That's right.
As a mistake, or
That's
somebody might have put one on you just to get you in trouble.
That's right.
Right. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Chair recognizes Representative Schlingensiepen.
Buddy, thank you. Let me begin by echoing the words of the representative from Sedgwick County who said that this was truly a bipartisan process and that the committee worked very hard and diligently on this. I would also like to say that this is not a bill that just does something to do something. This is a bill that addresses a concern that's been brought before the committee for at least 7 years. It addresses case managers who are often threatened by those they are caring for. It addresses foster families who feel their children are at risk because of the juveniles that we're talking about here. So this is an attempt to address a problem. Now, the question is, are the things that are being proposed in this bill going to prove effective? I would remind you that there is a metric built into this bill, and that is that we are going to follow what happens with these youth, and we're going to see whether what we are doing is beneficial to them as well. And I think that's important to point out here. I would like to say something else, and that is that in the 3 years I've been on this committee, we have heard people say, we need this, we need this, we need this. And on the other hand, people have said, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence that any of this is going to work. And so what happened was exactly nothing. How are we serving that sliver of youth we're talking about here if we do nothing? And also, what is this causing? What problems is this causing for the other youth that would be benefited by what we're doing through Senate Bill 367, when case managers want to quit working and when foster families pull out. So there is a problem here that we're trying to address. Now, the questions that have been asked about, again, whether the things that we're proposing are going to be effective or not is something we're going to have to watch. But this is an important issue. This is a very, very important issue. This sliver of youth we're talking about are youth, and they deserve our attention, and they deserve the best possible care that they can get so that they can become productive citizens in our society. We should all want that. I'm sure we do. Now, that said, in those 3 sessions I've been here, I've never heard any organization come forward and say, we know what works with this quasi 10% of youth. Here's a program in state X, Y, or Z that functions. Here's what they've done. All we've heard is what doesn't work. I ask myself why that is. Everyone stands around and complains when we do something, but if there are positive things that we can do and they've been left unexplored, what are those things? Well, it so happens that the state of Missouri is doing something that's very effective, and they've been doing it for a long time. And I've been reading their annual reports. Their Department of Juvenile Services has a non-recidivism rate of over 75%, and in some years 79%. That's impressive. Why aren't we looking at that? I'm going to make you a promise, and that promise is that this is really an issue that I have grown to appreciate through working with Chairman Lewis and the other members of the committee, and I intend to stay involved in this issue. And I'm going to try to see what we can do to learn from our neighbor, perhaps first, and from others who have been successful in this area, and see what it is that we can adapt down the road so that we can make real and lasting progress here. Because if we can help to crack the problem here, we are going to be having an impact on generations of Kansans. And this is an opportunity that I feel we cannot turn down. And so let me just say, I urge you to support me in supporting this bill, but more importantly, I urge you to support the issue that is at the base of this bill and to be willing to look at this critically and to learn what we can so that we can make even better decisions down the road so that we are serving all the youth, so that we are serving our communities in our state well. Thank you.
I'll remind the body that speakers will refrain from using the name of members at the well. Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Chuck Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair, could I ask you a couple questions?
You may.
When I was in high school, now this is 55 years ago, 56 years ago, I went to school with a lot of kids that were in a residential home. They came from BIS here in Topeka, and they were good friends of mine. They were on our football team. Like I say, they were just good friends. So this, to me, this is not a new thing. This is something I go back to my high school days that it existed. You know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a 14-year-old person killed a policeman in New Jersey. I know we're not New Jersey, but he killed a policeman in New Jersey. And Representative, do you think that boy's life is destroyed?
I'm sure it is.
I think it is too. I think he destroyed his life. He killed a 25-year-old policeman with a family, with children. Do you think anybody in that family was destroyed?
I'm sure they were.
Yeah, you know, can you imagine how many were destroyed in that family? I mean, it makes me ill. I really like this bill. I appreciate what they're doing.
Thanks.
I wish the gun bill would be a separate bill in itself, but again, I'm all for helping kids. And, you know, when I was in high school, again, a long time ago, they told me what hard times it is. Boy, you guys got it really hard times. These kids today have it much harder than what we had it. I mean, they have it tough. So I hope you support the bill, and we're all for our youth. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, body. You know, I really never thought that locking up kids was a good thing. As a matter of fact, I know, like everyone has kind of said so far, that it's counterproductive unless they have some really good services in place. But that was more of an opinion that I had. I felt strongly about maybe 10 years ago, more than today. Today, we're dealing with a different kind of young person. Spit on myself. We're dealing with a different kind of young person than even just 10 years ago. Today, guns and drugs are more readily available. Technology has advanced leaps and bounds. Kids have increased use of social media and they have access to so much information online. They're more influenced than ever before by TikTok, video games, their upbringing, lack of appropriate role models, and the problems in the world around them. They're disconnected. They lack the skills necessary to make good decisions, manage anger, and they're very disassociated with the reality of their decisions. They have unmanageable behaviors that have led to involvement in crime, and they are not held accountable in a way that might spark a change of mindset. I feel this bill will help to do that, to change the mindset of a youth who will do what they want to do because they know nothing substantial will be done. By the time these kids probably have committed a crime and found themselves in a situation to be incarcerated, they've already refused services. They refuse school. They use violence to get their way. But these youth need to be removed from endangering themselves and those around them. I worked in a youth residential facility for 13 years. I worked in the youth residential facility before Senate Bill 367 took place. We worked with juvenile offenders, low to mid-level crimes, and they had a level system, and it worked. These kids were held accountable. They earned everything. They learned, and they were changed. We even had one youth who didn't want to leave. He made it to college. They seen to it that he went to college, and he didn't want to leave. He bought a car. He stayed there for about 6 more months. I had 2 gang members that I used to read to at the end of the night. They made me promise not to tell anybody. So this was a youth residential facility, and I know that some of these youth are being incarcerated. So I know that there's this in the bill. It also, they're able to get a risk assessment. So hopefully in that risk assessment, they'll be able to individualize a program that they need. And I know that there's a lack of services, a lack of programs, resources that these kids need. So we need to do better there. That's the problem that I have with this bill here today. But I do feel that we need to remove these kids from harming others and themselves. They're very violent. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've tiptoed around these kids, and they don't care. And they'll tell you, do what you got to do. You can't do anything to me. Go for it. And because they know you can't. There's only so much that we can do, especially now, after the passing of SB 367. There's nothing we can do. We can't make them go to school. We can't make them go to their substance abuse classes, their therapies, nothing. And they know this. So it's not the best situation, but something needs to happen. And maybe they need to sit there and think about what's going on and learn to make better choices
And I know that a lot of these kids have suffered trauma, and they're a product of their communities and their families and the situations that they come from, and that is unfortunate. But something has to be done. I'm sorry, locking them up, incarcerating them probably isn't the answer. It's not the only answer, but they do need to be able to be in a place that's secure, and they can get their services from there. And I hope that this bill will do that for them. We even have foster families bringing kids back because they can't handle them. So I'm going to support this bill. I do have reservations, but for the most part, something needs to be done. Thank you, body.
Is there any further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Resman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to come down here and the ranking representative from the committee mentioned that there was somebody who had 7 years dealing with this problem, and I'm that representative. I'm also on the interim committee for the same thing, for corrections and juvenile justice, and we've been dealing with this problem for the last 7 years that I've been on the committee. You know, we've heard stories where there's one social services organization that told us that they had 78 juveniles that spent 143 nights in their facility. Now, I thought we stopped warehousing kids. Well, apparently we're still doing it, and this is one option for us to not have that happen. We also heard a story where a young social worker was assaulted. She had to lock herself in the office while this young juvenile just ran through the building destroying things. Well, they called law enforcement. They showed up and they arrested him. They processed him at the police station, and they brought him right back to the situation they just took him out of. So I know some people don't particularly like this bill, but this bill is 7 years in the making, and it's extremely important. And I hope you can support it for the kids, because right now we don't have a place to put some of these kids. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Susan Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions for the carrier of the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Representative. So the group home, as you're calling it, it's an extension of the jail or detention center that they're in?
No.
Okay. Is it for rehabilitation purposes?
Well, yes, I think, at least in theory, all of our incarcerations, detentions, putting the kids into foster homes, putting them into what we're now calling youth residential facilities are all designed to help with rehabilitation.
Will they attend school?
It may depend on the level, but for the most part, they will. It's not incarceration, but it will be 24-hour supervision.
Okay, and they'll have therapy?
Yes, absolutely.
And I've listening to some of my colleagues, and some of the kids, I guess it's known that many of them can't read or have difficulty with comprehension. Some may even have some learning disorders that have never been tested for. Will that be provided?
Yes, it's not in the law. I mean, we're not micromanaging these situations. It's the Department of Corrections that will contract for the group homes, and they're tasked with making sure that they work for the juveniles, and those kind of benefits or offerings are available. And it will, as I said, it will be Department of Correction that will, and the parties that are contracted to provide them, that will decide what the children need and provide it to them.
Okay. In the contract that you spoke about, who are they going to report to? Like will they give the legislature a report, or will they
Well, they,
go to a committee with a report, or?
the Department of Corrections will be the party putting out the request for proposal, and they will contract with the contracting entity that sets up the group homes, and they will presumably be monitoring that. In addition, as my ranking mentioned, and this was his idea, which I thought was great, we will be monitoring the group homes through with the oversight committee. So we will do it that way as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? Chair recognizes Representative Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Body. I've stood at this well several times before and spoke about the foundation for the reason that I'm here, and that reason is, of course, the children. And let me be the first to say that I recognize that there is something that needs to be done because there is a disconnect and we have an issue. I'm just not compelled to believe that that issue, the answer to it, is locking kids up. I also heard previous speakers, my colleagues, make mention of the fact that this was something that we felt like we just had to do because we had to do something. And I would say that I can agree there are things that we have to do, but let's not ever do anything simply because we feel like we have to do something without providing the proper amount of attention and time that's taken to make certain that we're making the right decisions. You know, what bothers me is literally everyone that has came up here and mentioned what the issues are, what the problem is. These are problems we created. 10-year-old kid didn't manufacture a weapon. 10-year-old kid didn't even purchase a weapon. We did that. These are kids that are already in circumstances that are causing them problems. And I believe wholeheartedly that something needs to be done. But we don't have any evidence at all that says locking them up additionally solves that. You know, I can remember when I got here, there was, I think the number was $53 million that had been set aside in this fund, and someone referenced it earlier, for the evidence-based services. Now that number, because of, again, actions that we created as adults, that number's down to just $10 million, you know, and then based on the testimony here at the well, there's a hope that we can come up with something additional after that. You know, and we've privatized this, so people are going to make money on these children that are incarcerated. And finally, the majority of these children, unfortunately, come from circumstances at home that are, again, outside of their control. Many of them, and there was testimony that spoke to this earlier, you know, many of them have problems with just the basic fundamentals, reading. You know, and if you can't read, then that means you can't write. If you can't read and you can't write, then your level of understanding is probably handicapped as well. However, when the question was raised, are there programs to help them learn to read and write? There was no answer. That's a problem. We're not addressing what's wrong here. You know, what we're doing is we're locking kids up. You know, I can't stand before you today and say that I have absolutely the right answer, because I don't. You know, but I do have a close personal friend who has several group homes. And he has a plan. In fact, I introduced him to a former representative who has now moved to the Senate, as well as one of our county commissioners. I believe he came and testify. I have every confidence that he would be able to handle those children. But as a child, when you look at him, he's somewhat of a menacing figure. He's a little larger than I am, and children typically don't decide that they want to lash out at people that are larger physical stature than they are. But everybody doesn't have that as an anchor to hold on to. And we don't have a plan that's going to be effective to help them. And that's the problem that I have with this particular bill. I can't change anyone's vote. And I don't know what I would tell you to vote, even if I could. But this is rushed. This doesn't solve any issues. All we're doing is locking kids up, and we'll be locking kids up, yes, in my neighborhood, those that look like me. Those are the ones that will be getting locked up, because I know in large percentage, those are the kids that have a lot of these issues that we're talking about. You know, I grew up with those kids at one time. I was those kids. I just hope you keep that in mind when you make a decision on this particular bill. I can't stand in support of it because it's too loosely written, and to me, it doesn't solve the problem. Thank you for your time.
There'll be no applause in the balcony, please. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to the bill? Representative Carmichael for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do rise for a second time briefly. The problem is everyone who criticizes the bill doesn't bring any solution. And the situation we have right now is intolerable for many of my constituents whose homes, cars, and the safety of their persons are being violated by juveniles. And so I wish that somebody would have brought a better solution, but frankly, all the committee receives is criticism. So I stand in support of HB 2329. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Mosley for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're constantly hearing that no one has solutions. And I think the biggest problem is that no one's figured out how to profit off of the actual solution that is necessary to correct some of the problems with our society. Like, once again, I will mention the solution would be expanding Medicaid so that their parents could get access to the mental health services that are necessary for them to be able to raise their children. The solution would be to make sure that every person who works 40 hours in this state would be able to afford housing, childcare, healthcare, and be able to educate their children. And so the biggest problem with this bill is that we want to do something, but the something that needs to be done isn't profitable. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Lewis, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, the representative, can't use his name, I don't remember where you're from, but he asked about the definition of youth residential facility, and it is defined in KSA 38-2303, means any home, foster home, or structure which provides 24-hour-a-day care for juveniles and which is licensed pursuant to Article 5 of Chapter 65 or Article 70 of Chapter 75 of the Kansas statute annotated in amendments thereto. Just briefly want to comment on a couple of what the various speakers to the bill said, that we're locking kids up. I disagree with that. We're actually saying that, so for instance, as I said, in some instances, the current law provides that either the corrections department or judges can sentence a child to either a group, I'll call it group home, youth residential facility, or a correctional facility. But that's not a real option anymore because we don't have group homes. So bringing back the group homes will allow judges in some instances to decide not to send a child to a correctional facility, but rather to a group home. So I disagree that we're going to be locking up kids. As far as guns go, yes, there are increased sentencing opportunities, if you would, options for the court in that respect. And I think the general consensus on the committee from all our conferees was that we have to send a very strong message to the youth of the state that you use a gun, you possess a gun during the commission of a crime, and you will spend some time in a detention facility or a correctional facility. I appreciate the ranking member raising the monitoring provision in the bill. I didn't mention that, but I do think it was his idea, and I thought it a very good one. We will be monitoring this going forward to see if we're doing any good or not with respect to the group homes. And as far as the evidence-based, there was some representative from Wichita, I think, suggested that we're doing away with the evidence-based fund. That's not true. As I explained, the evidence-based fund had over $45 million on it. We're taking 10 of those million and putting them to the group homes. So we're not doing away with the evidence-based fund. I'd also just finally like to say that the committee, all of the members of the committee spent a lot of time working on this. We had input from, I really enjoyed working with people. We had representative who was thinking about bringing the amendment. She was very active on the committee, and I think she contributed to the committee in a good way, and we listened to her, and we did have amendments to the bill, which I was going to say are compromise amendments, but actually I think they were actually improvements, and everybody agreed that they were improvements, and I think she was one of those that were in favor of those amendments, and when we agreed that those amendments made the bill better. So with that, Your Honor, with that, Mr. Chair, I rise that when the committee report HB 2329 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Lewis to report House Bill 2329 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. This concludes our general orders. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. Chair, I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The motion passes.
The clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole recommends that Senate Bill 1898, 121, and House Bill 2329 be passed as amended.
Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor to adopt the committee of the whole report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You've heard the motion to adopt the committee report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Reports of standing committee. The clerk will read.
The Committee on Agricultural and Natural Resources recommends SB 89 be passed. The Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources recommends SB 36 be passed. The Committee on Health and Human Services recommends SB 250 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Taxation recommends Senate Bill 10 as amended and the bill be passed as amended. The Committee on Health and Human Services recommends substitute for SB 67 be passed. The Committee on Taxation recommends SB 117 be passed. The Committee on Education recommends SB 44 as amended by Senate Committee and by the whole and be passed. The Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications recommends HB 2149 be amended by substituting with a new bill to be designated as substitute for House Bill number 2149 as follows: an act concerning distributed energy resources, and the substitute bill be passed. The Committee on Local Government recommends SB 194 as amended by Senate Committee be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar.
Committee appointments, Representative Lindsey Vaughn replaces Representative Heather Meyer on the House Committee on Health and Human Services on Wednesday, March 12th. This appointment expires at the end of the day on Wednesday, March 12th. Representative Susan Weichel replaces Representative Jared Owsley on the House Committee on Appropriations on Thursday, March 13th. This appointment expires at the end of the day on March 13th. Are there announcements? Speaker recognizes Representative Beeler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Social Services Budget Committee, just a reminder, we do have a session this afternoon at 3:30 and 152 South, and then also again tomorrow. Social Services Budget Committee. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two announcements. First, I'm asking that the members of the Juvenile Justice, Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committee meet after the floor session today at the rail. We need to approve minutes. And also, with respect to the Select Investigative Committee, that will occur at 2:15 tomorrow, Thursday, in room 546S, once again at 2:15 Thursday at 546S. There was an error apparently in the inputting of that in the system earlier today. It's been corrected. It said that it was Monday, but in fact, it's this Thursday, tomorrow, 2:15, 546S for the Selects Investigative Committee. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Insurance Committee, I miss you all. So we're going to meet at the rail, probably not with the other group, but we also have some minutes to approve, and I just want to see your faces. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Higher Education Budget Committee will be meeting today at 1:30 and 281 North. We will be hearing from students representing community colleges, our public universities, and also technical colleges, and one representative from a private university as well. So hearing perspectives from students about their experience in higher education. So if you're free, please join us at 1:30 at 281 North. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to invite everyone to the legislative prayer breakfast tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. in room 142S.
Speaker recognizes Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, it was my failure to get everyone in this morning on a point of personal privilege. So during announcements, I just want to make a quick announcement that we have members here present with us on this side and this side who are members of the Youth of the Year Boys and Girls Clubs of America Premier Youth Leadership Program. They are shadowing right now Representative Ballard, Representative Wagner, Speaker Pro Tem Carpenter, and myself. These are some of the youth that we have that are extraordinary, to include the Military Youth of the Year honor for the Distinct National Youth of the Year program that recognizes military-connected teams who have demonstrated exceptional character, as well as our National Youth of the Year. They've already been awarded, apparently 2 of them last night, Ms. Abby Thompson and Kai Wilson, a $2,500 scholarship for their college. And we are also joined by Arabella Gipp, Graciela Medina, Hannah Mendoza, and Ms. Valerie Vasquez Santos. And if you would please join me in applauding them for their outstanding achievements. Boys and Girls Club, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Stogsdill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats will have agenda tomorrow morning, 8:30, 152 South, 8:30. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Attention commerce fans, cancel commerce. We're canceling the meeting for today. We're gonna, and those of you that are interested in the child care bill, we're gonna postpone that to either Friday or Monday. Still in the works, lots of stuff to do on that bill. So we will see you tomorrow when the leprechaun will be in town and we'll be testifying on the Irish Commission. Thanks.
Speaker recognizes Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is pretty irrelevant now, but Rural Caucus is not going to have a program, but I wanted you guys to think there might be some lunches left if you needed to take them to your next committee meeting. Thank you.
Speaker recognizes Representative Christie Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another reminder, 5:30 today, if you'd like to, join us at the Celtic Fox. Take a half hour and meet the chairman of the Irish Senate, Mark Daly. Celebrate St. Patrick's Day early. We will also have him on the House floor tomorrow. But this is for anybody that would like to welcome him or anyone that is interested in learning more about the American Irish State Legislative Caucus that will be convening right before the K-State, Iowa State football game. So if you would possibly like to go, you can either talk to me or you can come to Celtic Fox at 5:30. It's short 30-minute reception.
Speaker recognizes Representative Rogers. Rogers? Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have been called worse. Colleagues, on my desk will be a resolution to denounce the planned satanic worship ritual to be coming up here on March the 28th. I am at desk number 40. If you want to sign off on it, we would love to have your support. My office is also at 186 North. It'll be there after everyone signs here. I will turn it in this evening. I apologize, we don't have days. The days are getting short, so again, if you want to read the resolution, I have it, and if you want to sign off, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Speaker requests at the well the three statesmen by the name of Representative Helgerson, Representative Wilburn, and Representative Goddard.
Wait for a second.
I want to say these are our statesmen from the august group across the rotunda. They have all served in the Senate, but that's not what they're here for. Representative Helgerson, if you'll take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We're the new sheriffs in town.
There are no hats allowed in the House.
That's correct.
Just about.
And when you are in violation of the House rules, we felt it was important to have a bipartisan committee enforce those rules. In the past, it has been that we will assess, naturally, a fine, a fee, a tax on you. So the three of us initially are now charged $2 for wearing a hat at the mic. We are here to make sure that we get along and to try to do it in as much fun as possible. In that endeavor, we have, 10 individuals or 10 categories of individuals that have violated the House rules in the last few days and are being assessed a fine. Don't you just love me doing this? The first one is the Speaker of the House. Representative Dan Hawkins, for limiting press availability to the House, so the press ends up using outdated photos of the members
limiting the taking of fresh, lively photos of our discussions and shenanigans, $2. The second is for the three amigos, that's us, for showing a lack of good judgment by serving in the Senate. Representative Tom Sawyer for not wearing a badge on the floor, $2. No, not today, previously. I got you earlier. Okay, who goes next?
I might add, originally, we were called the Three Stooges, but we thought we'd better. Now we Representative Helgerson for not wearing a badge, a current badge, $2, and wearing a badge that is from the 1980s, which is older than many of his colleagues. Representative Tarwater for taking Casual Friday to a new low by wearing grubby jeans, no coat, and no badge, $2. Representative Delperdang for repeatedly crossing the aisle time and time again, $2.
Three more. Representative Woodard for demoting the ranking Democrat on appropriations and letting him find out in a press release. $2. For Representative Blake Carpenter's excessive violence with the gavel while we're on final action. $2. For my colleague, Representative Wilburn, for referring to House members as senators when chairing the committee of the whole. $2. I yield to Representative Helgerson.
Final one. For all freshman representatives, just for being freshmen, and we don't like newbies, $2. In a secret vote earlier in the day, it was taken and I was elected chairman of the committee. God, really?
We don't have a committee yet. There is no committee unless the speaker appoints a committee.
Oh.
So,
$2.
so I hereby appoint these three amigos to the Statesman Committee with all the powers given to you.
Thank you. Seriously, this is to poke fun at us. We love the chamber. We love the history. We love and fight with all of us. And this is to help us realize that we work better together and don't take ourselves as seriously as we do at times, and to get along the last of the session, and if possible, maybe even next year. My colleagues will be responsible for the money. But if you have ideas or individuals that have infractions, feel free to drop them in the hat at my desk or to give them to the amigos, and we're known as the Three Amigos, because while this is a committee of three, it is all of us that are going to try to enforce the rules. Mr. Speaker, is there anything else?
I have $2 up here for my fine.
I move the adoption of the committee then.
With that, yeah, we ought to vote on this, hadn't we? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Now there is one. Motion passes.
$2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Assistant Majority Leader will be at your beck and call. Now, if that doesn't get everybody in a good mood, I don't know what will. We do have one more announcement. The Speaker recognizes Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hard act to follow. Just wanted to get it announced. We are going to have a conference committee on Senate Bill 105 between Elections Committee and Senate Fed and State at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Location to be determined. Just stay tuned and we'll get that location out as soon as we can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Republicans, we will calendar at 8:30 tomorrow in the old Supreme Court. For everybody, okay, composite picture is on Monday, the 17th at 8 a.m. Show up on the second floor, west wing. We'll go out to the stairs. We'll get in the order. We'll take the picture. So try not to be late, but it's at 8 a.m. on Monday. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Thursday, March 13th at 11 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Oh, 7.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Did I say Monday?